Did we get our introductions? Let's do introductions again. I'm sorry. Somehow I must have hit the mute button on my screen, and I apologize for that. So we're glad you're here. We'll do introductions here at our hub here at UNM Law School. For starting on my left, I have
Leslie Jones. I'm one of the attorneys who was part of the pilot project for the program in Sandoval County. I'm currently the lead attorney and attorney mentor for the program.
My name is Kate Lindsay Fior. I'm one of the lead social workers for the program.
Christy Fields, I'm also a lead social worker for the program.
Parent mentor for the program as well.
And let's do quick introductions around our virtual spokes. You all are members of our community. Just again, introduce yourself, where you're calling from, and what you do, please, or the name of your organization that you're with. We'll start with Dominica.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dominica Montano. I'm the Clinical Services Coordinator for the 13th Judicial. I used to oversee the Family Advocacy Program. Currently, I oversee pretrial services and community client support services for the 13th. And I have my pretrial team here from Valencia County. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Haley Taylor. I'm a social worker and client support services. I'm Brianna Smith, and I am a pretrial officer.
You introduce yourself.
Kyle Rokas, student intern with pretrial services case manager.
That's us. Thanks.
Thank you, Dominica. Glad you're all here. Cantrell, would you like to unmute and introduce yourself, please?
Hold on, you're still muted. *6.
Sorry, my name is Kentrell Mosley. I am a supervisor in Sandoval County where the FAT program started.
Thank you, Cantrell. Mary, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, good morning. I'm Mary Stanton. I'm a counselor and the regional director for Amity Foundation. We're a service provider in Albuquerque for minority women who have histories of incarceration. We work with families and children, and our services are free. We're funded through a federal grant.
Thanks, Mary. Glad you're here. Corey, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. So I came on board mid-January as the program manager for the Family Advocacy Program, and I'm here at the AOC in Santa Fe.
Thank you, Corey. Hello, Megan. Would you like to introduce yourself and your elbow partner today?
My name is Megan Gonzalez, and I'm a permanency planning supervisor in Bernalillo County.
And I'm Jessica Irwin. I'm also a permanency planning supervisor in Bernalillo County.
Thank you. Glad you're here. Bonnie, would you like to unmute and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Bonnie Murphy. I was an educator for 26 years. Now I'm an advocate, and I'm in a master's program at UNM for educational leadership, but I'm not sure. I might continue with the advocacy and social work route. My company is called Educating New Mexico.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Jackie, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, my name is Jackie Sosi. I'm a family advocate with Child Haven here in Farmington. We're a part of the Child Advocacy Center here in Farmington.
Thank you, Jackie. We're glad you're here. Diana, would you like to unmute and introduce yourself, please? I think we can hear you now, Diana, if you'd like to try again. We may come back. Janelle, would you like to unmute and introduce yourself, please? She may not be able to hear us. We have someone joining us with the initials ALBDTAT. Would you like to unmute and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, this is Tanya T. Hirina, Clinical Coordinator in the 2nd.
Oh, hi, Tanya. Thanks. We're glad you're here. Joe, would you like to unmute and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, all. This is Joe Simonson, and I am actually calling from Ohio. I visited the Child Law Institute in January, and this has been identified as a model of interest to my project. We have a federal demonstration project in Ohio called Linking Systems of Care for Ohio's Youth, and we're interested in learning more about the model in New Mexico and its sister project in New York City. So thank you for having me. I'll just listen in.
Thank you, Joe. Brittany, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Maybe we need to remind me *6 for phone calls.
Brittany, did you find that unmute button? If you're calling by phone, remember it's *6. We can't hear you, so we'll go on. We have J.H. Morales with us. Would you like to introduce yourself, please? We will go on to Catherine's iPhone. Would you like to unmute and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, yes, I'm Catherine Brock. I'm one of the social workers with New Mexico Family Advocacy Program.
Thank you. We have a couple of folks joining us by phone. Last 4 digits of your number is 5917. Would you like to introduce yourself? Just hit *6 and we should be able to hear you. We'll go on to last 4 digit phone number 9612. Would you like to try *6 and we'll be able to hear you? Okay, well, we're all learning this new technology as a new community of practice, and we'll all get better with it. But I would like to please ask you also to find that chat window. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see an icon marked chat. If you could click on that and enter your name and email address so that Laura can capture your, who's here and be able to help with any follow-up and make sure that we can have your information for future invitations for our ECHO network. Again, we really thank you all for being here. And do use that chat window. We're going to be moving forward pretty quickly over the next 45 minutes or so with a wonderful presentation from our experts here at the hub of our ECHO session, ECHO network. But use that chat window if you'd like to write down a question so that you don't forget it, and we'll make sure that we come back to it when we pause here and there. Also, when we do have an open discussion a little bit later on and some questions, be sure to just, with Zoom, just kind of wave so we can see who's wanting to talk. Unmute yourself, wave, and introduce yourself by your name and where you're calling from. That would be very, very helpful. And then, again, we really encourage all of you in our video, because we are in a community of practice, and much like we are all elbows on the table around each other today, if you can turn on your video camera, that would just be wonderful for us. And if you need some help with that, chat with Laura. She'll help talk you through that while we're going forward. So without further ado, I'd like to reintroduce Leslie and go right into our workshop and presentation. So give me just a minute as I pull up our video. Might also want to tell our PowerPoint slides, and I do want to be sure to tell you that these slides are available in our resource library that is linked to the invitation that you received earlier today. So hopefully you'll be able to refer back to that more easily. In addition, we are also recording this video, this session, so that you can refer back to this, or if you have a colleague who wasn't able to join you, they'll be able to go back and review this as well. Leslie?
Okay, thanks. Welcome to everyone. We're going to try to go pretty quickly through the program. If you have questions while I'm presenting, please, you can use that chat to send your questions to Laura, and then she can relay them to us so that we can answer when we take breaks for questions and answers. Because I know we've got some people that are not at all familiar with the program. We've got some that are very familiar with the program. So,
hang on just a second. Okay, there we go.
So the New Mexico Family Advocacy Program is a model of representation for respondent parents and guardians in neglect and abuse cases. We use an interdisciplinary team with an attorney, a social worker. When we have a parent mentor, we work together using each of our, the training that each of us has, our specialized knowledge and our skills, to advocate for the parents and guardians that we represent to help them achieve their stated legal goals for their families. The core values of the Family Advocacy Program are dignity, compassion, and respect. And we want to emphasize that those aren't only the values that we want to bring to the work that we do with our families, but that also that we bring those core values to our work with each other. As we practice together and also as we learn together in this mode through ECHO. New Mexico Family Advocacy Program is committed to the principles of cornerstone advocacy. This was developed by the Center for Family Representation in New York. There's a brief summary when we get to the end of this part of the materials about the 4 cornerstones of cornerstone advocacy, and we'll talk about those a little bit. So after an abuse neglect petition is filed, an attorney appointed to represent a parent can refer his or her client to the program. Because the FAP social worker and or parent mentor are part of the legal team, the parent's representation team, it is only the court-appointed attorney who can request or can make that referral and request assignment to a case. So then the NMFAP clinical team will determine whether or not to accept or a parent into the program. And I'll let either Caitlin or Christy talk about their criteria for acceptance.
So at this time, we currently have 3 criteria that determine whether we are able to take a case or not. It's going to change a little bit with the grant, depending on what they require us to do, because it is a study. But at this time, the criteria is that the case can be open 3 months or less, that the parent has no prior termination of parental rights, and that the parent cannot actively be on probation for criminal child abuse. So a situation where a parent is on probation for child abuse, got their kids back, and then the incident occurs again. And it's not because we wouldn't work with those parents, we would work with any parent, but it's because that often takes a lot longer than 15 months to address the mental health issues that kind of contribute to why that occurred again.
So neither CYFD nor the court can request or object to a referral or the appointment in a program. But I do want to emphasize that often we rely, the attorneys and the social workers, we rely on information from CYFD to determine whether or not it's a good case for referral. I almost always try to touch base with the social worker, the investigative social worker, and hopefully if there's already been a permanency planning worker that I know is going to be assigned, to get information about whether this would be a good referral to the program. And that can be whether if the parent has deficits that the program can really address, or if the parent has good strengths and we can work a reunification plan much more quickly if we're in the program. So then the attorney that's assigned to the case needs to get orders entered because everybody's independent contractors, because our cases are sequestered. We need court orders allowing the Family Advocacy Program social workers and parent mentors to work in these cases. And the social worker and parent mentor also sign an affidavit. Those have to do with confidentiality, and those are also signed by the attorney and filed with the court clerk. Because it is important to remember that since the social workers, the FAP social workers and parent mentors are part of the respondent parents legal team, they are covered by attorney-client privilege pursuant to NMRA 16-106. So that means that in the same way that an attorney cannot disclose privileged information, the social workers and parent mentors in FAP are also bound by that.
And I think something that's important for you guys to know is that we're all licensed social workers in the program, and we're not going to do anything that's unsafe for kids. If it is a reportable incident, it's something that we are going to report. We're going to talk to the attorney, of course, who is attached to our case, and staff it as a team, but we do have to report new instances of child abuse.
Okay, so I'll let either Christy or Caitlin then talk about what the New Mexico FAP social workers do.
So there's a lot of things that we do with parents that have abuse and neglect cases. The biggest part of it is we do clinical case management. And kind of how we describe that is that we're doing tangible tasks while we're having clinical conversations about relapse, substance use, mental health issues. So an example of that would be if we have a client who needs to get a social security card because they have a job that starts on Friday. And so we're going to the social security office with them to help them get a social security card. We're having conversations about, okay, so tell me how the weekend was. And the client says, well, I relapsed. So we're addressing the issues of what were the triggers for that. Can we get you in to see your counselor? Do you need to go to a meeting? We can do that today. Things that all contribute to why kids are in custody while we're getting a social security card, because having a job helps reduce relapse because the parent has something positive that they're engaged in.
I'm going to kind of add to that too. And so something when we've done these trainings in the past for CYFD is some of the concerns initially with CYFD was that we weren't going to be sharing information with the department. And some of that's true. We are going to be sharing as much information with the department as we can, but there are things we're not going to disclose because we can't. So in that instance, if that was Caitlin's client, she's not going to tell the PPW that the parent relapsed. That's not the goal of the program. It's not how it's designed. The idea behind that is, though, somebody is working on it. Somebody who's licensed knows that this is happening, and Caitlin is addressing that, right? I really want to encourage the department to really be open about we really wouldn't do anything that's dangerous. We are social workers, and we've had situations where we've had to leave cases because we didn't feel that we could move forward, and we do make those decisions when necessary.
Okay, and I'll let Quiva, our parent mentor, talk about what parent mentors do in the program.
Pretty much my role is to support the parent as they go through this process. Also, as well as the social workers, I address triggers, and we talk about things that are barriers and strongholds as well. I really like to get to know my clients and just sit down with them so they can get a sense of comfortability, because coming into the system, they feel a little defensive as far as any assistance. And so I just, help them out and just keep them calm. And we talk about coping skills, and we also talk about resources and my team, as far as the support that my team is going to give them.
So, and in fact, social workers and parent mentors do come to court with the clients. They sit at counsel table with the client and the attorney in most cases. I don't know if there may be local rules that might affect that, but so far everywhere the program has been implemented, we've been able to do that. And there are things that the social worker or parent mentor can help with during the hearing, and I'll let them talk to that.
So one of the things we work a lot with parents on is how to manage anxiety before court, because court is very anxiety provoking situation for parents who have had their kids taken away from them. They're going to come in, they're going to hear from the judge the things that they're not doing or that they're not doing well enough to get their kids back. And so we work a lot prior to court hearings about what can you do to manage that anxiety in court. And then when we're in court with clients, we help them manage their questions, their anxiety, anything that arises, so that the attorney is able to focus on the testimony that's being presented to the court. And so that way we can make sure that we are communicating things to the attorney, but that we're not interrupting the attorney at the same time.
I'm going to give some examples of that. Some of the things that we like to do is we always bring toys. I don't know if you can see this, but they're sort of like squishy balls and stress relief. I'll give an example that you've done, Caitlin, is a case where often the parent would get very escalated and couldn't listen to things that might be perceived as negative. And so she worked really hard ahead of time with the parent to work on writing those things down. When you think something's not true or misrepresented, you're going to write that down rather than scream that in the right. So we can address this with your attorney. She can ask the right questions. You can talk about the things that you need to, but without it being a verbal outburst. And it's been really helpful.
From the attorney perspective, having the social worker or parent mentor there in court can also be extremely helpful in terms of helping the parent to advocate for their needs. Sometimes the parent isn't ready to speak up, can't speak up, but they can communicate that information to the social worker or parent mentor in a way that they can then translate it to be presented to the court in an effective way, so that what the parent wants is getting communicated. They can also be a real help because of the knowledge that they have about addressing any concerns about whether or not the treatment plan is really the right one for this parent. If we need to be making changes to the treatment plan, then the social worker and parent mentor can help us advocate in that way. So social workers and parent mentors also work very closely with CYFD, and so I'll let them talk about the kinds of interactions that they have with CYFD, both at meetings and outside of meetings.
So we attend FCMs with clients. We also attend home visits with the PPWs assigned to the case when we're able to. We can't make it to every one of them, but we try to attend as many as we can and really work to make sure that clients are receiving the services, the appropriate services that they need. So an example of that might be talking to a PPW about, okay, I know you really want this parent to participate in a substance use group, but this parent has a cognitive delay, and so can we get this service somewhere else in a setting that is more appropriate to that individual's needs?
Some other things that we do is we do a lot of role playing, and we talk a lot to clients who are obviously feel that they're in a very adversarial role with the department, right? The department, you have my kids, I can't listen to what you say, right? You have something that's so important to me that it's hard. And so we often are saying some of the same things. I'm talking with my client Caitlin about, okay, so let's talk about why your kids are in custody. Let's talk about what are the things that we can do to address that, right? And so we're sort of reframing some of the things that are said in meetings, so it's said in a way that we built some rapport together in a way that the parent can hear that and be more receptive. And I think that that's what we found with this program, is that parents feel supported, right? That they feel like they have someone that's on their team, right? That is helping advocate for their needs. But we're also saying the same thing. You're right, that these things that happen, we got to work on them, and there's a way to get through that. And they tend to receive that a little better from us.
At this point, I'd also like to ask if we can hear from Kentrell, because she was one of the first CYFD people who participated in the program and has a lot of experience with how this interaction has worked, and I think it'd be really valuable to hear from Kentrell. So Kentrell, if you can unmute.
Sorry.
Okay.
So I do think that being a part of those home visits and talking through those treatment plans has been very valuable for us. Some of our staff are not social workers, and having that clinical piece is very helpful for our clients. I know that people have been talking about IEPs in that chat, and I haven't had that experience where schools have not, or anybody, when we've been to provider meetings or not, have not allowed a FAP social worker to talk to a client or talk in the meeting. I would advocate as a worker from CYFD and the legal guardian of those kids that those are support systems and those are case managers to help, unlike anybody else. It's also been helpful. I think one of the things I want to say is for us to participate in meetings with service providers with the FAP social workers and to connect with those service providers that parents are working with. Sometimes those service providers trust the FAP social workers more than they do us. And that has been helpful to get reports, to have them at meetings. So I think that those are big things to keep in mind when we're working with the FAP social workers, and areas that we can utilize and get help in moving cases forward.
Thanks. Can you talk a little bit, because in the 13th, we know that social workers have been able to do the biopsychosocial assessments that are part of the initial assessment plan. And also if you could address kind of what the experience of the department has been with the visit hosts that the social workers and parent mentors have helped to identify and bring forward.
So here in Sandoval County, we do have a visit host layout. So we have a form that has what our visit hosts need to do. We also have a plan on how we identify them. what we need to kind of educate them on in order to be a visit host. And that did come from the Cornerstones and the first initial rollout of the FAP social work team. I think we as a department are working on the safety organized practice and working on those circles of support with our clients. And the FAP social workers have been able to help us identify those, getting good genograms from people, especially when they do help us with those psych socials. It has been helpful for my department to have a clinical piece with those psych socials. If we have additional questions, the FAP social workers have been open for us to ask those questions, to get more feedback. When we've had cases return, they've been willing to update those psych socials. So those kinds of things have been very helpful. I think if we did have, I know that as the department, sometimes we utilize those psych socials as, well, there's an opportunity for us to make an assessment and to recommend things. As not clinicians, it's sometimes not helpful in that situation. But I think if we are as a team can ask more questions of why didn't you recommend that to the court social work or to the FAP social workers, that's been meaningful. And parents have been willing to do things more.
Great, thank you, Control. Okay, so and you've already heard some of this, but both from the social workers here and from Cantrell, but the social workers and paramentors also work very closely with the community service providers.
So one of the things that we ask our clients to do is to sign a release of information for the providers that they're seeing. That way we can communicate about what the treatment plan from CYFD is and make sure that they're meeting kind of the milestones that CYFD is asking them to in their case. And so we communicate pretty regularly with service providers about what clients are working on in their services and kind of areas where we see maybe they need something different.
Yeah, so I can give an example today. I know that we have a FAP social worker and a CYFD PPW and a client meeting with a med management provider today to kind of talk about what are the needs, what are the things that the department's going to need to be released that the provider may be a little reticent to release. And so we want to make sure that our clients are going there, they're getting good service, but they're also getting credit for that on the department. And so sometimes when we have those conversations with providers, it goes off a little easier than when the department's saying, hey, give us all your notes. The therapist is like, yeah, I don't think so, right? And so we can kind of field that and figure out what are the things that we really do need, and they just absorb that a little better. Something else that we do is we work really closely with the therapist talking about, okay, so what are the goals? Where are they at? What are the modalities? And we can talk about, okay, so if that's not working, we can kind of brainstorm, is there another way around this? And I think that initially when we meet with a new therapist, they're always like, why is there somebody else here? But once they get to know us and know what we do and the clients with us, they have been pretty game on about, I would like for you guys to participate in this. It's been really helpful moving cases.
It's just important to note that the FAP program, having the social worker and parent mentor there, do not relieve the assigned attorney of his or her obligations to actively and effectively represent their clients. Also doesn't relieve the department of its obligation to make reasonable efforts and to assist the parents. That obligation remains. So we feel like the program does work to achieve better outcomes by having better informed, more effective advocacy for parents, for empowering parents to reunite with their children more quickly, as better parents, to increase parent engagement, getting better and more customized treatment plans, getting more frequent and more natural visitation, and then also helping parents when reunification simply is not a possibility, to help parents to be part of finding permanency elsewhere for their children when possible. And I'll let the social workers speak to that.
So a good example of that is we do a lot of psychoeducation with parents, and we've done a lot of psychoeducation for families, because oftentimes we get into a situation where even a parent has recognized I'm not going to be able to meet the needs of my child at this stage in my life. And sometimes we get outside families who are saying But if you don't really love them, then if you really love them, you wouldn't be willing to have these kind of conversations about relinquishment or adoption or post-adoption contact. And so we've been pretty helpful in not just working with the parent, but also working with the outside, the family influences that are telling this person no, this is not where you need to be. This is not the right answer. And sometimes that is the right answer.
We also encourage parents to attend relinquishment counseling, even if that's not something that they're considering at that time, just so that they know all the options that they have in the case.
So I also just want to take a step back too, and as an attorney, to talk about communication, because there is a lot of communication that happens between the FAP social workers, parent mentors, and the department, and it's really important that all of that be documented. And so we always ask that, especially in particular email communications, that everybody be copied so that everybody's getting the same information at the same time. The FAP social worker, the parent mentor, the attorney, and CYFD.
Right, so when you see that, yes, so that's part of a program requirement they have. So when we email the department, and let's say we're talking about, hey, can we consider X, is we will be attaching the attorney.
So do we want to take a little break now? If anybody has questions that they'd like to ask, we'll do a quick review of Cornerstone, but if anyone has questions or comments they'd like to make now.
Can we look at the ones that have been posted right now?
Yes, let me pull up the chat. There was a question early on about special ed, and I know Dominica, thank you for.
It was at the very top.
It's at the,
go down. No, go down.
Okay.
It was at the top of the screen.
So I think Bonnie had mentioned something here about APS schools and some challenges there. Bonnie, would you like to unmute and ask your questions or offer that to us for a minute?
Oh, absolutely. So I did go to an IEP meeting to advocate with a parent, and this parent did not have current CYFD involvement, but previous involvement. And the school did tell me I could not speak in the meeting at all, but I was trying to communicate with the parents about the things that they were doing. So, for instance, if you do know about special education, there's supposed to be an eligibility determination meeting that happens first, and then the IEP gets written. Well, they were trying to go the other direction because the diagnostician wasn't there. But we didn't even know if the diagnostician was going to show up. So I was trying to communicate with the parent that we should probably wait until the diagnostician comes, because it makes it a better IEP if you have the diagnosis, because it's hard to write goals for a child without the proper diagnosis. So, but they weren't allowing me to speak. They told me I had to turn off my phone, and I was just wondering, is that normal? Do you all deal with that, or do you all extend into the special education realm as well with the parents?
So I can answer that for our program. I think that we have a different experience in terms of typically the schools, because the parents involved with CYFD, that they're aware, and also because we're court appointed to a case, I think we haven't run into that. I do see that Dominica talked a little bit about that we are going to have a specialist to talk about IEP, so that would probably be a good one for you to join in about what are the rights of the parents, what are the rights of the schools.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure that because in the same way that like our cases are confidential, the child's educational records are also confidential, but it seems I'm not quite sure I understand why it's not the parent's right to agree that you can have that information. And I would encourage you to check with Pegasus Legal Services for Children if you have questions around this kind of thing, because they do a lot of advocacy around school issues.
Can you jump in?
Yeah, Dominica, if please do jump in, and then also you could maybe share your recommendation for Joe Simonson's question as well.
So I wanted to jump in real quick. My name is Haley again. Before becoming a social worker, I was a special education teacher, and I did a lot of IEPs in my role, obviously, and what they're telling you is actually illegal. If the parent wants you to be a part of that meeting, you're allowed to be a part of that meeting. They can't tell you not to be there, and they can't tell you not to speak.
Thank you. And then Dominica, Joe Simonson had asked about do we work with families who are system involved, court involved, but children still remaining in home, or only with families where children have been removed?
Yeah, so Joe, if I may have misunderstood your question, but what I did interpret that to be asking is, if we work with families whose children are at home and CYFD involved, we would. An example of that is when there's a trial home visit, we continue to work the case until it's closed. We have not, I don't remember if we've received a case where the courts did not remove the children. Christy, Caitlin, you might want to speak to that. But if they were to allow that, where the children should not be removed, but it was the CYFD case moving forward, we would still work with the families in that situation as well.
Thank you. And there's such a rich conversation going on in the chat window. That's wonderful. And keep in mind that we'll be saving the chat and being able to share it back in a unique way through our resource library. We'll talk more about that later. Before we move on, are there any other questions, comments before we go into the next section of our presentation today? Yes, Jackie.
You have to unmute.
I can't hear you.
There.
Okay. So I just had this question earlier. So I was kind of asking, do you guys only get involved if like the child is taken out of the home and if the allegations are substantiated?
So the program only becomes involved after a legal case is filed. The way the system has been for the most part and remains is that legal cases typically only get filed when the department has decided to remove the children from the home. But that doesn't mean that if the court, say at the initial hearing, decided that the kids could go home while the case continued, the program could work with that family. And now with the changes under Families First and the ability with Safety Organized Practice and hopefully the move to have more children stay in home while the interventions and the legal case goes on, we definitely would be available for those cases as well. The children don't have to be removed, but it can't be just a substantiation. There has to be an actual legal case filed because parents don't get appointed attorneys before that. There is no legal representation, so there's no team that the FAP workers could be part of.
Okay, I gotcha. I was just kind of confused because I think it is a little different because I work under the forensic interview program, so I know we get the cases firsthand, and then sometimes that's when they'll determine if like CYFD needs to take them out of the home or not. So that's just kind of what my question was for.
Thank you, Jackie.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions before we move on? We'll have some more time to come back if you think of more. All right.
Okay, so just really quickly, because I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about ECHO and then for questions and answers, just really briefly, Cornerstone Advocacy. So the 4 cornerstones of Cornerstone Advocacy are visiting to make sure that there are many visits as possible in the most natural setting possible, placement that keeps a child's connections to family and community, and hopefully whenever possible with relatives or fictive kin, that services are done in a way that are appropriate to the family to address the parents and children's strengths and needs, and that we pay a lot of attention to out-of-court advocacy, so conferences, staffings, FCMs, meetings that happen outside of court with service providers as well as with CYFD to really move the case forward as much as possible. And the other emphasis is to really work in the first 60 days of a case to really get that direction going. So there, again, there's these brief slides in your materials that you can take a look at, but that's essentially what Cornerstone Advocacy is the focus on those 4 cornerstones. So placement, services, conferences, and visiting. Okay. Right. So that's the end of our part of the program. I'm going to turn it over to Mike now to talk about our learning module, about our teaching model, the ECHO model.
Thank you, Leslie. Quick reintroduction. I actually taught as a special ed teacher for a number of years with an APS with a master's degree in special education, and recently retired about 3.5 years ago as the founding principal of Next Gen Academy, a small magnet school for APS high school. Since then, I've been working for the state and organizations, public education department, and others on special projects, which brought me to be able to meet a special program called ECHO. Some of you in the health sciences area or realm of social work may have come across the UNM Health Sciences Center ECHO model. And that's what I've spent some time over the last couple of years learning about, being able to transpose it from the medical model into education, and then now into this unique teaching and learning module to support your work. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of what to expect from ECHO, how to get the most from participating in the sessions that will continue the learning that has begun today. Some of you are learning about FAP for the first time, and this will help to really expand your knowledge and expertise. And others have had some experience and will be able to work with you in the weeks ahead between now and December. And the idea is that we're going to really help to enhance your knowledge of this unique interdisciplinary practice that these ladies were able to share with you. To be able to have a lawyer, social worker, family advocate, and now service providers and CYFD folks around the table, and even judges here and there, is quite unique, and is part of that that model out of New York that our friend from Ohio talked about earlier. We're one of the first in the entire country, as I understand, being involved in this in our community. So be thinking of how you'll learn how these ECHO sessions will give you that opportunity to continue your learning from experts in mental health field, social work, and others, and be able to also give you an opportunity to explore new ways to work with your clients and solve some of those problems and challenges and help overcome barriers that you're facing as you're working with your clients. So that ECHO model that came from the UNM Health Sciences Center has become pretty famous, not just in the US, but around the world. In fact, President Obama in December, before he left office, signed the ECHO Act to really take a look at what was begun 17 years ago as a way to provide. ECHO actually stands for expanding the capacity for health outcomes, starting with service providers in the health field, especially in remote, rural, isolated communities. And to do it using video conferencing technology like we're using here, Zoom, which works even in Africa and India and some very high remote areas in the United States and New Mexico and Indian reservations as well. It allows us to share best practices, to provide that case-based learning, not just those workshops, 20-minute lecture type didactics like what we're presenting today, but something that you'll learn more about in case-based learning. And then to collect that data that, again, as you may know, this is part of a federal grant to really take this unique model and elevate it and amplify it to expand with more expertise within our central region of New Mexico, but then to expand it across the entire state. And you can kind of see how this virtual learning community hub and spokes model, since we all can't have that time to work with each other, getting together virtually to expand our knowledge and experience, and even to help solve some of the problems is really important. That collaborative, timely, relevant, every 2 weeks, rather than just coming to a 3 or 4 day conference and workshop learning about this unique model and then going back to your practice on your own to work to figure it out. This allows you to continue your learning and to continue to develop your expertise in a very collegial way. As you can see, we have, as I mentioned earlier, a very unique, heterogeneous group of folks in our community of practice, of practitioners and experts, from parent attorneys like Leslie, social workers like Caitlin and Christy and Dominica, and also our parent mentors like Cueva and other service providers like Mary and others that are on the network today, and of course the Department of CYFD. So together we'll provide this unique opportunity where we can all teach and all learn in the ECHO sessions every 2 weeks. We know, and I've gotten to learn as kind of that outside person helping to develop this unique network, that you all are facing some really unique challenges as in finding the best outcome for your clients, best outcome for your families. And so our commitment to you is that each one of our workshops, each one of our sessions will be focused on helping to help you address those challenges as best as we can in the weeks and months ahead. You'll be linking together with technology just like we have today, like Catherine is with us by her iPhone, her smartphone. You can, we have someone joining us with a Chromebook, and you could even use an iPad. And we'll figure it out, Dominica, you could be in a conference room where you can actually use some very sophisticated video conferencing technology. But either way, Zoom will find a way for us to make it very easy for us to regularly communicate. And Laura will help guide us with using Dropbox as a way to help keep our, what we call a reference library. So PowerPoint presentations, recordings of our sessions, and other resources and materials that you'll find in there. Some of the affidavits and other forms will be available in that resource library as well. We'll talk more about this, but we found out yesterday with our microphones that they're very sensitive here. So we learned that sidebar conversations at the hub is difficult. And if you're with, so that learning how, since we're going to be doing this during noon, to kind of keep your phone or your microphone muted while you may be eating and having lunch and being involved at the same time, that's okay. We'll go through these other things to help make the best use of our time together as we build this hub and spoke model called ECHO for FAP ECHO. So don't forget that resource library where you'll have a rich amount of resources and materials, and the link to that will come every 2 weeks with the email that Laura will be sending to you. The workshops, which will be 20 minutes in each one of our sessions, not as long as this one. This is more of a deep dive session and orientation. Will cover a wide range of topics. And you'll find, even if you are a social worker, that some of those topics that may have been addressed more for judges and hearing officers would be very appropriate for you to know, and vice versa. Then part 2 is what we call case-based learning, where we have 2 types of case presentations that you will have time to present. You being participants, whether you are with CYFD, a social worker, or a service provider, you'll be able to really kind of share with us what are those challenging, complex dilemmas that you're facing around the process or the clinically driven issues of working with your clients for the best outcomes. And then we'll have another section of our presentation will be a more what we call a fact pattern learning session, where a particular case with the identifying features are whited out or blacked out will allow that the heterogeneous team, collaborative team of social worker, the legal representation, to be able to share, share this challenge to the whole network. And we'll ask the folks that may have another element or another partner or be representing someone else in that particular case. We'll ask them to step down and to remove themselves from the session at that point so that the client privilege is still honored. And then part 2, we don't have time to go into the form, but it's very simple. It's 3 questions, just kind of a driving question. Here's what we're challenged with. Here's what we've tried. And here are some ideas that we're thinking about. Here's some background information. So 3 to 4 minute presentation of the case, and then a time for us to then facilitate some clarifying questions and recommendations, not just from our panel of experts at the hub, but from all of us, because you as a social worker from a different location may have had a similar experience that you'll be able to share. Again, that concept of all teach and all learn, and then providing those recommendations. So we'd like, before we sign off to this part of our segment, and you know, I may have rushed through the ECHO part, but I wanted to make sure that we have enough time for your other questions you may have. Before I do, I want to make sure that you take a moment to type in and write down this email address, because from now on, you'll be getting a lot of information, your invitation to each session every 2 weeks, links to resources in between times from this echonmfap@gmail.com. So put it into your context list so it doesn't wind up in your junk or quarantined email, as some of our folks have already found. So hopefully that wasn't too much of a rush for you. So I wanted to leave some time for some questions. I'm going to open up the chat window and now we have several minutes still left for questions, either for Leslie, Caitlin, Christy, or Cueva, or myself, having to do with our new unique ECHO for Family Advocacy Program expertise.
Any questions? Yes.
Yes, Bonnie?
Will there be any in-person meetings?
So the New Mexico Family Advocacy Program will definitely have in-person trainings. Those will mostly be directed, as we're expanding the program throughout the state to the different districts, that we'll be doing in-person trainings each time we expand the program, and we'll make sure to do that. But most of our training is going to be through this model, through the ECHO model.
We also do follow-up trainings with CYFD, not necessarily annually, but I think that we're going to move to that just to make sure that we're all on the same page and that they understand the program as a whole, because we have good relationships with different entities that we've worked with consistently on cases, but now that we're expanding, we're going to start to work with a whole bunch, increased number of units. So we will continue to train in person that way.
And so that we aren't ignoring we have a great number of folks that have joined us without a video or by phone. So let's go ahead and unmute if you would like, so that you can open your microphone, because I can't see you waving your hand without a camera, and ask your question or your comment or thoughts as we wind down our workshop today. Go ahead and jump in.
So if nobody has any questions right now, I would like to take a minute because I think sometimes people don't necessarily understand who the people are in the program. And the social workers that come into the program and the paramentors really do come with special skills. So I would like them to talk just for a minute to let you know where it is they come from, the skills that they come from and bring to this practice.
You want to start with parent mentors?
Start with parent mentors.
As far as my skills?
Yeah,
what you've done.
Yeah. Why did we pick you? Why did Dominica pick you?
Okay. I was formerly a case manager for another organization, a nonprofit. I do have experience with addiction, homelessness, with my children being taken from me as well. And also they have been reunified back with me. So the connection that I have with parents, it's a little bit more stronger than a social worker because I can relate. So that is my biggest thing, and that's the experience that I have to bring to my team.
Cueva, one of the questions that came through the chat window is, and maybe you can answer it or someone else. Joe was wondering, I think she's our friend from Ohio, do you have any problems recruiting parent mentors?
Yes.
Yes, because parents in our experience, who have finished with their CYFD cases successfully and are reunified and are great and they're happy with the progress they've made, they're thankful to people who've helped them, are like, catch you later. I am done with this, understandably. And so we do have issues that we poached Cueva. We heard her speak and walked up to her and asked her if she would join us. So
we're very happy.
Yes, we got very lucky.
And Quiva has a lot of resource knowledge too for families that we're working with, and a lot of resources that she knows of that we don't necessarily always know of, and she shares that with us. So it's been super helpful.
May I add something to the conversation?
Please, Dominica.
So one avenue, Joe, in looking for parent mentors that may be helpful is going to your state Health and Human Services Department. They may have a track of certification for peer mentors, as that's what New Mexico has. We've ran ads through HHS and their resource of parent mentors. And so looking into that avenue might be helpful in recruiting parent mentors as well.
Thanks, Dominica.
So, so I'm Christy Fields. I'm a lead social worker for NMFAB. I am a licensed master level social worker. I've done a lot of things over the last 20 years, primarily home visiting. So I've spent a lot of time in families' homes over 20 years, teaching parenting, finding resources, assessing needs. I think the benefit of having a social worker on the team is we actually can, I'll give an example, we can look at some of those assessments and some of those neuropsychs and go through them and give some feedback. If we have something that we disagree with or see that might be incorrect or need some more assessing, we can have those discussions with the attorneys, with CYFD, with that provider directly. We've done that and say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, right, I read this neuropsych, I see this paragraph in this diagnosis, but I also looked at this personality inventory that you did, and so it indicates there's no malingering here, no clinical diagnosis can be made, even though there's some consistent answers. So we can talk about so how did we actually get to this diagnosis? Because actually the testing doesn't indicate that. So we've been very helpful at trying to find the right services for the parents that we serve.
My name again is Caitlin DeFiore. I'm also a licensed master's level social worker. I have also worked at another agency where I did group and individual therapy for people with substance use disorders, mental health disorders, and domestic violence counseling. Christy and I both started in this program as interns and have really been able to be with it as it grows, and I am very fortunate for that.
Cantrell, would you like to, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Sorry. So I'm sorry, I was telling Laura I have to get off, but I do want to add that I really believe in this program. I really believe that Sandoval County has made strides towards permanency so much faster with the family advocacy program, with the safety organized practice. And it has taken us many years to get to the place that I think we are, but I think even our families appreciate them being there as part of that service.
Thank you, Kendra.
I think Megan and Jessica, I don't know if you can hear me, I'm gonna put you guys on the spot. Do you guys want to talk anything, do you have anything to say about your experiences working with us? They're shaking us off.
I've always had positive experiences with all the social workers that I've worked with. We've had some very difficult cases, and we've had some clients that are difficult to engage. But I think that overall, I've had a very good experience. We've had some cases that have not been as successful as we would like, but at no fault of, anybody really. It's just, we have some tough cases. I'm working with a really tough case with Catherine right now, but I really do appreciate all the collaboration and all the support that we get from the social workers.
I noticed that Janelle and Rebecca have maybe unmuted themselves. Is there anyone else who would like to just offer a question or a comment before we wind up here in the next couple minutes?
Bye. And I also love working with Quiva. She's on a few of my cases.
That's
Us
great.
too.
Bonnie?
I just wanted to mention, just to follow up with what Dominica was saying, the Office of Peer Recovery and Engagement. They have peer support workers, family support workers, and community peer support workers training, and they're putting people doing placement and hours in different places. So that's a great way to get lots of people engaged in their community, like Cleveland's doing.
So Bonnie, if you would like, and this will be part of our Beneco session very often, is for you to just share in the chat window maybe the name of that organization and or the link to them so that we can share that with everybody. If you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be awesome. Thank you. And we'll record this in chat just as we're recording and saving our workshop as well for others. Mary, did you have any thoughts as a service provider? And I know this is all new for you today. Anything that you would like to add?
Yes, well, I appreciate being included in this presentation. We work extensively with women and with CYFD who are involved with cases like this. We have many women who have been successfully reunified with their children who would be potential peer mentors. I'll put in the chat window our contact information as a referral source for social workers here in the community, and also let me know any way that we can provide any support for either the families or the children. We work a lot with women who've been involved with the criminal justice system, who have been in and out of jail, who've had their children removed, and so want to be a resource. So let me know how we can collaborate with you in the future.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Any last minute announcements here? Just a reminder to check your email, make sure that we're in your contacts now. Take a look at that resource library for more information, and there'll be the chat will be in a more organized format for you to read in your resource library in the next few days or week. And then mark your calendars now for our first official 1 hour and 15-minute maximum New Mexico Family Advocacy Program ECHO, and that'll be the start date of and the launch of our bi-weekly professional learning sessions every Tuesday afternoon from noon to 1:15. And we really would love to have each of you stay with us. The list of topics for each of those workshops are available in a couple different ways through that resource library and for that link that Laura sent out to you yesterday to this session. Any last minute thoughts or comments before we sign off, ladies?
Thank you guys for participating.
Thank you.
Great job today. Thank you all, and I look forward to working with you in facilitating this amazing, unique network in the weeks and months to come. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. We just got it.
Thanks,
yeah.
Bonnie. I'm sorry.
That's funny.
All right. If you want to, Jennifer.
for the family peer support.
No, that's not our job.
Oh, XULP? Oh, okay.
Her name is Aubrey. I'm trying to see it because I didn't do my application in time.
Okay.
I just found the link for it.
She's deleting.
Okay. Okay.
There we
That's
go.
all.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Hi, Dominica. You can
You're
unmute now.
muted.
It's just us now.
Hi, guys.
How'd you think it went?
I think it went really well. You all there have done a great job every day. I think that this particular session, though, was very much like it's going to be, I hope, in the future. With the conversation, there was a lot of chat going on in the bar. There was questions being asked. There was, people. The spokes were participating